Everyone, and welcome to the fifth meeting of the Workforce Attraction and Retention Task Force. I welcome everybody to today's meeting. Before we get started, does any members have any introductions of any special guests that are in the audience? Seeing none, Sasha, if you would, please call the roll. Welcome to the fifth meeting of the Workforce Attraction and Retention Task Force. I welcome everybody to today's I've heard that voice before.
All areas within the terminal building are designated as smoke-free.
Senator Elkins.
Present.
Senator Funky Fromeyer. Senator Howell. Senator Webb. Representative Branscombe. Representative Cook. Representative Pollock.
Here.
Representative Tackett Lafferty. Co-Chair Wise.
Present.
Co-Chair Duval.
Here. I want to thank everybody for their attendance today. I do need an approval for last month's September minutes. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor accepted, do so by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have a great agenda for today lined up with a lot of various topics as we proceed and make our pathway through the interim period for this Workforce Attraction and Retention Task Force. I know we do have some members that have an event that some are planning to attend, so we're going to keep the train on the tracks and keep it running for this afternoon. And first, we're going to start off with a Zoom presentation that we have with us. Mr. Ted Abernathy has joined us to talk about talent wars and workforce competition and how has intensified over the years. And I think also Kate Sanders with the partner head of strategy and leadership with economic leadership as well. So, Mr. Abernathy, appreciate you joining us. And if you would just identify yourself for the record, please, and you may proceed. Is that coming through for you, Mr. Abernathy? Mr. Abernathy, I'm sorry, we're having technical difficulty there. Sorry about that. If you would first introduce yourself for the record, and you may proceed, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Ted Abernathy. I'm the managing partner of a firm called Economic Leadership that's done quite a bit of work in Kentucky for the state chamber and for the Lexington, Northern Kentucky, and Scott County chambers over the last few years. With me today is Kat Saunders. She is a partner and head of our strategy and leadership part of our firm, and we are delighted to have a few minutes to spend with you doing a short presentation. I'd like to apologize ahead of time on all the technical stuff. I'm sitting at the airport in Springfield, Missouri, where we released a workforce report today. So this was the only way that I could be with you. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Completely understand. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you very much. I want to share my screen with you, and if someone on that end would just let me know that it did share, I'd appreciate that. And is everybody able to see that?
If you can increase the size on that, that's perfect right there. You're good.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. So our firm does a lot of work in competitiveness around the country and in workforce specifically. We've been around since 2013, been working in Kentucky for the last decade, and we're currently doing work in 26 states. We work about half of our time for private companies, trying to figure out where they want to put investment in America and how they want to talk about their investments. And the other half of the time working for state chambers, currently 20 of those, and local and regional economic development groups. When you start talking about competitiveness, it takes a lot of forms. As you are well aware, taxes and regulatory climate, legal climate is part of the business climate that you have. You've got to have the infrastructure, everything from water and sewer and housing and childcare, and today power. Innovation is a big part of what people look at. Are you going to be ready for the future? And since COVID, risk. What's the crime rate? How's the weather? What's the fiscal stability? But overall, workforce tends to be the number one issue that people are concerned about. Businesses want to know that they have enough people that they can get to do the jobs that they need. You're a very competitive state in a lot of ways. Your cost of doing business is in the top 5 in the country as among the lowest. It's an excellent position to be in. You are having a lot of business formations. You rank in the top 5 over the last 5 years in new business starts in your state. So there's a great deal to be proud of and to build on. And as you know, you've had a lot of success recently. But a few years ago, we did work for the National Association of State Chambers. And what we found is that economically, the throttle on American growth was we just didn't have enough workers. The 3 challenges that we face is enough workers to meet the demand in places, workers that have the right skills to meet those demands, and then a system that can train, match, and share information across states. Uh, Today, we're talking about the quantity of workers. And if you look at Kentucky's labor force over the last 15 years, your labor force is quite flat. So a flat labor force means that you're throttled against future growth. Your job growth has gone up, employment's up significantly, but you just don't have any more workers. If you look at 10-year compound growth rates for all the states, Kentucky's in the bottom third of those states for the last 10 years. And if you look at where that growth just in population has been, it's predominantly in people 65 years and older. And so finding those prime working age people between the ages of 20 and 64 is a challenge. And overall, the state is growing about half the rate of the country. When we look at just the last few years to see how COVID has changed things, your growth has improved. You're now running about half the national average. You're in that second third of states now, but it's still not up to the national average, and it's still a block on what you want to achieve with your economic growth. If you look at your neighbors, you're in the middle. I'm in Missouri and told them this morning about their slow growth, and nobody's particularly happy here. You've outgrown Ohio and West Virginia, but trailing places like Tennessee and Indiana and Virginia pretty badly. When we look to the future, and projections are based on past experience, but if you look to the future, we use Lightcast as our model. Kentucky over the next 10 years for working age population is expected, if nothing changes, to be pretty flat. And that's going to make it difficult to deal with the opportunities that you have going forward. So the goal overall is to find a way to support the economy by growing the labor force. And that's what a lot of the speakers that will follow me today will talk about. It's the key issue to allow Kentucky to continue its growth. And unfortunately, there's only 4 ways that you grow the workforce. The first is to have more children. So you end up with more people entering the workforce than retiring. Nationally, the growth rate in America has continued to decline. The fertility rate, average woman had 3.7 children in 1960. In 2020, it's down to 1.6, and Kentucky's a little better, but still not replacing the people that are leaving through retirement. I don't think it's going to change. When I ask groups if we think that young people are going to have more children, most of the audiences are overwhelmingly sure that they will not. And when you ask people why they aren't having kids, most just respond that they just don't want children. It's a choice that they're making in their lives. So we don't think that we can wait 20 years, even if we were successful with having more children. And we don't think that's going to be the way we go. Second is one I know that the state of Kentucky spent a lot of time and effort on. I was facilitated a task force a few years ago for the state chamber on trying to get more of our adults of working age into the labor force. Nationally, we have the highest percentage of people 25 to 54 working now in the labor force and working than we ever have. We have more older workers, and workers over the age of 55 work at about half the rate of 25 to 54-year-olds. And so the fact that we have so many makes the national number a little lower, but there's not a lot of room in participation rate nationally. At the state level, there is room. And in Kentucky, what you see is that you're in that bottom group, the under 60% of your working adults in the labor pool. Some of that is cultural. You can see a lot of southern states fall into that. But there are other ways to try to deal with that. You are looking at a participation rate that's just under 60% compared to a national average of 62. That's not a lot, but 2% of your labor force would make a great deal of difference. When we look at participation rate, children in the household make a big difference for households where You have children under 18, a much lower rate. And so childcare and other issues are worth looking at. And I think all states, including yours, are paying attention to that. So it's educational level. For someone that has more than a high school degree or a BA degree, they're well above the 60%, 66 and 74%. If you don't get people through high school, they tend not to be in the labor force very much. And so that becomes an issue. Third area is migrant workers. And across the country, we have moved up with the percentage of legal foreign-born workers that are part of the American workforce. It's gone from almost 10% 30 years ago to 18% today, and that matters. Kentucky does not have many foreign workers. You are much lower, but less than a third of the national average, and that's an area that you can look at. But the fourth area is what's happening all across America, which is a huge competition with every state to try to make it a place where people want to move to. You have people moving in and out all the time. The last couple years have been good to Kentucky. Those are relatively small numbers, but you can see that over time, you've not got as many people filling up the worker ranks as you'd like. So what other states have been trying to do around the country is figure out ways to be talent magnets. And they're very aggressive about it. When we look at the talent wars, people move because of cost of living and housing availability and costs. They move because you have quality health care and that it's a safe place. Kentucky has a lot of those assets and a lot to sell to someone if they can aggressively get that message above the noise of every other state. Michigan this year has a $20 million campaign just targeted at 10 states where tech workers are. You can in Michigan campaign. They also have a Back to Michigan campaign where regions around the state are targeting places that young Michigan residents move to, trying to get them to move back. And they do a lot of homecoming events and other things to try to bring people who have drifted away. Maybe they went to Chicago, maybe they went to Minneapolis. How do they get back to Michigan? Florida has a marvelous integrated campaign called Wonderful FL, and it works around moving people there, getting people to work remotely there. It talks about remote work and how you do it, very hands-on. People can go on a website. And one of the great things about it is most of the major statewide organizations and lots of the regions in Florida are all aligned around this campaign. But it's, everybody knows Florida's been very successful in getting people to move there. And part of it is because of this aggressive outreach to people. You don't have to be a big state. New Hampshire has a Heart of New England, Great Jobs campaign going on. When it comes to location, New Hampshire has it all. We've been doing some work in New Hampshire recently, very proud of their state. And they have the same trouble that a lot of southern states have. They don't like talking about it too much, but they've understood that to get people to understand that there are options to live there, that they spend their time and their money trying to get them to do that. Jobs Ohio is very aggressive about selling the state of Ohio and all the assets. Find your American dream in Ohio, I think is a nice tagline. They have online relocation guides. It's a sophisticated model that allows states to compete. One of the things that we try to emphasize to people is if you're not telling your message, somebody else is. I challenge everybody, go home today, go to YouTube or Google Kentucky and why you should move there or why you shouldn't. And you'll see that that there are a lot of groups and individuals out there capturing your own message. So in the end, there are a lot of benefits of statewide talent attraction, remembering that the goal is to have enough workers to grow the economy. But if you take hold of it, you're the top of the funnel. You're the people talking to talent, sending your own message, building your own narrative about how you want people to think about your state. You can also focus on the key industries and employers that are growing in your state. So you can tailor your message to companies. Oklahoma does a lot of work around trying to get aerospace engineers to come to their state. It's pretty targeted. There's monetary things associated with it. But what we see are states trying a lot of different things and being more aggressive. This also sends a message to your key constituents, your key stakeholders. you're telling businesses that you are aggressive about trying to help them recruit the type of workers they have. You're telling your citizens that you're proud of your state. And your data can be used as a tool for companies that are out there recruiting. Every day, you've got companies recruiting people to come to work for them in your state. You've got higher education institutions trying to get parents and kids to want to come there and be trained in your state. And they're also trying to keep them in your state and they're called rooting strategies, and people are trying to do that. So overall, when we start talking about what can you do to grow your workforce in your state, you can try to attract foreign workers, and some states are doing that. You can try to transition people out of prison systems and build childcare so more mothers can work and try to get people off the sidelines in. But in the end, you need to have a strategy to try to get more people to want to stay in Kentucky and move to Kentucky so that you'll have enough people going forward. And I realize I talked a little quick because I've got a plane to catch in a few minutes, but I'd be happy, and Kat on our team would be happy to try to answer any questions that you have specifically.
Thank you so much. Ms. Saunders, I don't know if you want to contribute anything just as a follow-up.
No, I think that's it. I mean, one of the things when I'm talking to groups that I often say is, traditionally in economic development, it was all about the business attraction and all about the site and what infrastructure did you have and what industries were you targeting. And I think what's so interesting now is that the charge behind economic development really is also this workforce attraction. So it's not just business attraction anymore, but workforce attraction. And it's a little different because business attraction is more B2B and talent attraction is a little more B2C, or business to consumer, right? So it's a little bit of a different skill set and a little bit more of a challenge in economic development now than it used to be.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the presentation. I completely understand you're pressed for time, and I think also I talked to Shelby and Andy, and I think some questions that you may have brought up in this may be also asked to them during their presentations. But any members before he needs to get off the Zoom, any questions on this? Seeing none, thanks again. Safe travels, and we appreciate your attention and your time that you've given today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Next on the agenda, we're going to roll right into this on the same topic as we continue to focus on attraction in the workforce and the talent campaign is Andy Johnson, also with her Shelby Somerville and Christine Tarquinio, all representing Lexington, Commerce Lexington, and Greater Louisville, Inc. So whichever one wishes to start the presentation, you're more than welcome. Just remember the microphones will show a green light when you're ready to speak into those, and introduce yourselves to the record, and the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, would you like for us all to introduce ourselves first?
If you can, that'd be great. Thanks.
I'm Andy Johnson. I'm the Chief Policy Officer and Director of Regional Engagement for Commerce Lexington.
Hi, I'm Christine Tarquinio, Vice President for Talent, Workforce, and Brand Strategies at Greater Louisville, Inc.
Shelby Somerville, Vice President of Government Affairs and Communications at Greater Louisville, Inc.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for being here. And Andy, I'll just look at you. You're welcome to proceed.
And before I get started, I also want to recognize some of our team members that we have in the audience. Betsy Dexter on our team, I'm just going to prompt them to wave. She is handling all of our talent attraction and workforce efforts, and Anthony Allen has recently joined our team. He is our VP of Public Policy. So it takes a village to do advocacy and to do the work that we're doing with our regional competitiveness campaign. So I'm here today to share with you all on behalf of our regional leaders and our team about what we're doing in Lexington and in our 9-county region related to a regional competitiveness plan, and specifically a key action item of that plan, which is a talent attraction marketing campaign and strategy, so that as the state considers this potentially, that our process, our journey might be a model for how we get started and take something like this from an idea to a strategy and then to a campaign. So just for some context, for many years, Commerce Lexington has partnered with leaders in our 9-county region in central Kentucky for economic development, job attraction, job recruitment efforts, for public policy, and for leadership programs. We've also worked closely with our tourism partners in the 9-county region, specifically with Visit Lex, to market quality of place. And for us, we really are better together when we leverage both the urban assets and the rural assets when we're doing the job attraction, the people attraction, the visitor attraction efforts. We've known for a long time that we're better as a unit than as individuals, and we've got both business and government leaders that recognize that and support that. So for us, and I think we all felt this even before the pandemic, but after the pandemic, that the economic landscape was changing. What businesses needed, what workers wanted, the pressures just intensified. So our regional leaders, both our business leaders and our local government leaders, were really talking about the same challenges in 2021. And we recognized as Commerce Lexington that our role was to serve as that convener, to bring those leaders together, to have a conversation about how do we need to reposition ourselves, how do we need to be more strategic, more collaborative in efforts to grow jobs and to grow our workforce. We take a group of leaders every year on a benchmarking trip. 160 business leaders from the region go to another community, another city across the country. And it's typically a place where we know they've got momentum. They're doing something as it relates to job attraction or people attraction that's making a difference. Some of those places that we've recently visited, Raleigh, North Carolina, Austin, Texas, those are all places we know that are hubs for job attraction and for people. And the key theme that we're seeing from these communities is that they're coming together around a strategic vision, a common set of priorities, and really resourcing those things to impact their competitiveness. So when we got back in 2021 from one of those visits, we did convene our regional leaders in a regional advisory group. It was 45 leaders. They represented all the 9 counties. They were from business, government, education, tourism, all the partners together in a room. And we engaged with Ted's team at Economic Leadership, and we also worked with Development Counselors International. They're a firm out of New York that Kat actually used to work for, and they do workforce attraction strategies for states and communities all across the country. And we use those experts to help guide us through a year-long process to really look at our regional economy, look at best practices, what were the economic trends, what are other people doing, and really to help us provide guidance on a menu of options that we could do to make our 9-county region more competitive for jobs and for people. So the takeaway from this slide is just that this really was rooted in a lot of research, collaboration, and data. In addition to the outside experts, we also engaged with internal stakeholders. We hosted numerous briefings in the 9 counties with key leaders. We had focus groups with young professionals in the region, and then we also did some surveying in markets outside of Kentucky that we knew we were losing people to. So one of the things, I'm going to skip over this because Ted hit the competitiveness indicators, but one of the things that I think was really eye-opening for our leadership was to see where the Lexington region, the 9-county region, ranked against cities that we were competing against for jobs or talent, or cities of a similar size, and based on the competitiveness indexes. And what we found really were 3 things. Number one, it's similar to what Ted showed for the state of Kentucky. I think our story is the state story in a way, that we were in the middle of the pack, and we had quality of life, quality of place strengths that we really needed to leverage more. But there was something going on with our momentum that we needed to figure out. And when we talk about momentum, that's really those economic indicators. And the region itself was below the national average in the amount of jobs we were creating, the workforce we were attracting, the product that we were making in the region, and the wages people were making. So these were things that whatever we chose to do, we wanted those to impact those momentum indicators. Another interesting data point was we surveyed 1,700 young professionals in outside markets, places outside of Kentucky where we knew people were moving to. And this won't be a surprise. Those markets are Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Nashville, and Chicago. And the key thing we found is it's not that it was necessarily a negative impression. People just don't know us. We were unknown. They don't know about the live or the work opportunities that are in the region. The other thing we did when we looked at the challenges and strengths as it relates to talent attraction, we found that in terms of marketing investments, whether that's for economic development or for tourism or for any type of retention attraction efforts, we were not spending at the level that other communities were spending on those types of efforts. So the plan itself has 3 overarching goals, and you see those listed there. Number 2 is related to the workforce attraction and the retention of our young professionals. Something that we found is that we were only growing our workforce in the region at about 600 people per year. So our goal internally is just to try to double that. And when you've got 10 colleges and universities in your backyard, that's pretty alarming to see that we're not keeping the students here, that we're not attracting people here. So those are two goals of the plan. So with that, our regional leaders, and I show you all these things to say that, you know, a lot of times with strategic planning, you can have a list of things, 20, 30 things that we want to do. But our regional leaders were very adamant that they only wanted a handful of items that we were actually going to commit to doing, that we were going to resource properly, and that we were going to try to execute these things that could be win-wins for all communities. And so you see the 7 action items here. They do involve economic development and policy, but there are 2 things related to talent that we are focused on, and today we're talking about number 4. So before we get to the talent attraction process, I just wanted you all to know that this effort is really funded 2-to-1 business to government. We have raised over $1 million from private businesses in the region to support this effort. This is a 5-year commitment on their part. And then our regional local governments, for the first time ever, have invested nearly $600,000 in supporting this regional competitiveness plan using a dollar per capita model. And so we're really proud to say that the majority of the governments in the 9-county region have committed to this within the first year based on that model. So when it comes to the talent attraction marketing strategy, we wanted to give you all just an overview of the process we've taken over the last couple of years to just get this thing off the ground. It's really been something that was intentional. It was very collaborative, and through this process, you know, Commerce Lexington is the backbone entity. You've got to have somebody that's responsible for executing it. I feel like we're like the border collie. My grandfather had border collies, so they're the herders. They're making sure everybody's moving in the right direction and holding it accountable. But that is our role within this. But we have committed to all 9 counties that this isn't just about Lexington. Lexington's important in this, but this is an effort where we want all of our communities to be represented. All 9 counties have strengths that need to be portrayed in this campaign, and that is our commitment. So the 5 steps we followed to date are, it's really a simple formula. You know, we, based on the research, created a marketing strategy with our friends at DCI. We worked with that to develop different messages we knew were going to resonate with talent. We did a timeline, a budget, and crafted a reasonable execution plan. In addition to that, you know, one of the first deliverables that we needed to have is a regional brand identity. What do we call ourselves? How do we identify ourselves to people outside of the region? And that was something that even when you talk to regional leaders, we didn't know what we should call ourselves. So that was step 1 in this process. What was the elevator pitch that you would say to someone if you were on an airplane ride? We needed to have a message that we could all be ambassadors for the region. In addition to that, the next step was developing that talent attraction website where all the resources could be located in one space. And then beyond that, to get people to the site, the first step is to do that social and digital media. We all have phones. That's the best way to reach people today, is to serve them that type of information. 70% of people are looking online for those resources, and that was our step 1. In addition to that, we're going to be tracking the data in real time and can adjust this campaign as needed. So some of the questions when we've been talking about this over the last year, you know, are about like, who are the targets for this? Who are our businesses? And so for our region, everybody needs workers, but for our economic growth, you know, we've studied this and narrowed it in that these are the industry sectors for growth, for economic growth for the region, and that is what this campaign is centered on. So you can see the sectors we're focused on: advanced manufacturing, healthcare, life sciences, IT, business and professional services. All of these things are important to our growth. The other thing is, what are the messages? And the information that we're presenting, whether it's on the website or through the social and digital media, these are the key quality of life messages that we know matter to people. And fortunately, just like in Kentucky and in the region, these are our strengths that we can lean into. So the target audiences for our first phase of this, and this just launched a few weeks ago, we're sticking with what we feel like are warm audiences, that this is our best bang for our buck to start this campaign. Groups that already have an impression of the region. So we're starting with our alumni of our 10 colleges and universities, those that are in that working age population, and we're also working with recent or prospective tourists, people that have visited the region who are planning a visit and looking online for resources about a potential visit. So one of the key deliverables this year, and we started this process in January, and we've just now finished it up. It's live. It was live on September 1, is the Talent Attraction website. This is a place where it's a live, work, play website. It's where all the resources can live in one location. It's really what we're calling our digital entry point, the digital front door to the 9-county region. This site is extremely robust. It has 30 pages of information on it. It's got a county map that allows each of our communities to be profiled, a cost of living calculator, a job search feature. It profiles all of our key industries. We've got education resources, outdoor amenities. It really does have it all in one location. So it can be hard to talk about a website, show a website. So we've been working with Kismet Marketing in Lexington on our social and digital media. I'm sorry for the blank screen. I promise it's going to be something. And they have helped us with some of our stakeholder resources to educate about what this campaign is. So they have created a hype reel, and we're pretty excited about it. So it showcases the website, the journey that a user may have on the site, and it gives you a flavor of what the digital campaign would feel like as well. So it's very short, but we want to show that to you all so you can see what we're talking about when we say a talent attraction website. Oh, sorry. Okay. So just to wrap this up, I know there are a lot of questions with marketing about how do you measure success? And, you know, for us, I think we feel like there's both short-term and long-term goals with our campaign. In the short term, through this marketing effort, there are industry standards that you look to see if a campaign is being successful. So that's your website visits, the impressions, the engagements, the reach, the followers, the videos, all of those things. And we're going to be on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of those places. So those are some measurables that you can look to. But to make sure that we're reaching those target audiences and what messages are performing well. But over the long term, taking it back to the regional competitiveness plan, we are going to be annually looking at those numbers on workforce and seeing if our regional labor force is increasing and getting closer to that national average number. You know, internally, we have a goal to see that move from 600 people annually to 1,500. So over the next 3 to 5 years, you know, marketing is not everything, but we do think it's an important component. And then the phase 2 of this is really going after our student populations to connect them with businesses earlier in their journey to try to keep them in the region. So with that, just to conclude, I think with talent attraction marketing, we believe this is a really important economic development tool to help our competitiveness here in Kentucky and to help our target businesses find the skilled workers that they need. You know, we're already marketing to job creators and site selectors through the Economic Development Cabinet and through what our economic developers are doing in every region of the state. Our tourism professionals are already investing in tourism marketing, and both of those efforts are being tremendously successful. So we just feel like this is really taking the next step to align and leverage both of those investments towards a campaign that is targeted towards the people that we want to be here to help support our businesses. So with that said, I think this is, we wanted to share this more as just a process of our journey, hoping that this is something that the state may consider replicating in terms of telling its story, because we really do feel like the greater Lexington story is the Kentucky story. We have an urban center, but we also have rural communities, and it is our commitment to elevate everyone through this campaign. We've got regions across the state that have tremendous strengths, and we think we've got a lot of assets to share. We've just got to tell our story, because if we don't do it, no one else is going to. And we want Kentucky to be a leader in the talent attraction retention space. So thank you.
Perfect. I'm going to stop right there before we proceed and just open up also for any questions. I know we have a couple of members from this particular 9-county region in Central Elkins and Representative Cook. One question I had, Andy, you mentioned about you all traveling to maybe Raleigh, Durham, or Austin. What cities are traveling to Lexington to see what Lexington is doing? Are you all seeing, instead of us going there, places coming here to your region?
We are. We've had, I think last year we had 3 different cities. I think it was Springfield, Missouri. There was a city in Texas, and I'm blanking on their name, but they're actually cities that are a little bit smaller than us that are coming to Lexington, and we're sharing the story of our regional competitiveness plan, what we're doing with talent attraction, and those are the things that they're benchmarking with us. And a lot of it ends up being the quality of life amenities that we have, the downtown development with the convention center. They're often traveling to see the advanced manufacturing center that Toyota has in Georgetown, our career academy model in Fayette County. So we are seeing communities come. They're typically a little bit smaller than us as a benchmarking visit.
Perfect. And one other follow-up I've got, and any members that may want to chime in. You mentioned there about student retention and after graduation, them not maybe staying in the particular region. And I think a lot of times in the rural areas, I probably could speak for Representative Branscombe down there and others, we send a lot of our students to graduate from Taylor County, Camels, or Russell County. They go to Lexington or Louisville. They never come back home. So what's the reasoning of them not maybe staying in Lexington after graduation or those 9-county? Is there a certain thing that's pulling them away? Is it out of state? Is it going to Louisville? Is it elsewhere, maybe Northern Kentucky? What's any reasoning?
I think, we're working with our university partners to unravel that question. Some of the data and the tracking are things that we need to do a better job of understanding that. But from the focus groups that we hosted, what we found, and again, it's Cincinnati, it's Indianapolis, it's Nashville, it's Chicago. I think the students need to have an awareness, a greater awareness of the job opportunities that may exist in the region. And I think it's our role to try to connect them sooner with those companies or businesses that are here so that they know about that, because I think they feel like they need to go to a larger area to have those experiences. And then I think, some folks want to have that big city experience, but they may want to come home after a few years. So we've got to find a way to stay in touch with them and to continue to deliver those types of messages. I know Greensboro, North Carolina has a campaign like that where they're going after alumni in a strong fashion just to say, this is how the community has changed since you've been gone. Come back for these reasons. So, it may just be we've just got to stay in touch with them, get a connection sooner, and then just continue to communicate with them through that process.
Perfect. Fantastic. Any member, any question following this presentation? Seeing none. Shelby and Christine, I'll let you proceed.
Well, thank you again for having us. Shelby Somerville with the Greater Louisville, Inc. You've kind of heard the 2 stages so far, the national level and national perspective, how Greater Lexington area is working on their talent attraction campaign and strategy. And GLI in our 15-county region has been doing this work for several years now. And as Andy and I and some of the others in this coalition have been circulating this idea of a statewide talent attraction marketing strategy, we've gotten a lot of questions on, okay, great, we do this funding. What does that actually mean? What can you actually do with the funding? What's the ROI? What kind of programming is possible? And so that's why I brought Christine Tarquinio from our workforce department, who's the queen of marketing and loves to get into the weeds on a lot of this stuff, to explain our branding and talent attraction campaign called Live in Lieu. We have a website that's very similar to Wonderful Florida, I think, that Ted had mentioned. But she's going to go over some of the initiatives that we've done for our region and maybe give you all ideas of what could be done at the state level as well.
All right, thanks, Shelby. Thanks for allowing us to show this. We affectionately refer to this as my baby. So thanks for allowing me to bring my baby to you to see. So we started Live in Lou because we need talent. This data represents our population growth compared with that of our peer cities between 2010 and 2020, the two censuses. But we've been in this location for quite some time. We're growing, but we're not growing as quickly as we would like to be, and we're certainly not growing as quickly as we want to be if we want our economy to grow and bring new businesses to the region. We surveyed 833 people that had relocated to Greater Louisville and asked them, why did you move here? If you stayed, why did you stay? Where did you come from? And what we found out is that about 75% of those individuals that had relocated to our region came from a 200 to 500 mile radius. So you can see here that the dark gray circle represents that 200 mile radius, the light gray 500. So when we started to frame where we were going to try and attract talent, that became the place that we began first. Of those 833 individuals that relocated, we asked them, why did you move here? What motivated you to move specifically to Louisville? And we looked at it in two different demographic breakdowns, from 25 to 34 and 35 to 54, thinking that those would be very different motivators. Where you are at 30 and where you are at 50 are typically different places in your life. But what we found out is that there was actually a lot of overlap. Everyone was looking for the availability of good jobs and business opportunities. Everybody was concerned with quality of place and whether or not a community was suitable to raise children. And then everybody was looking for the ability to make a difference. So as we started to figure out what our messaging strategy would be in order to connect deepest and most impactfully with our target audience, that became our value proposition. That became the basis for how we started to craft our marketing message. So this is our talent outreach strategy at 50,000 feet. You heard from Ted that this is really complicated work and it takes a lot of different initiatives working at the same time, supporting one another in order to be successful. And I'm going to walk through some of these in a little bit more detail, but not too much detail. We'll begin with some talent attraction campaigns that we've been working on. Andy mentioned that it can be difficult to track return on investment, right? For marketing, a lot of what you're trying to do is generate awareness, and it can be difficult to translate that awareness into action. But it's actually the most important part of the marketing funnel, because what you want to do is first create the awareness. That leads you to consideration, and then that leads you into action. And so you really want to hear something at least 7 times before it starts to stick into your brain. And then it has to be in your brain at the point at which you're getting ready to make a decision. So it is really part art and part science. Recently, we've been collaborating with some local employers that have had significant hiring issues. In this example, you'll see it's Norton Healthcare. They came to me and said, I need to hire 300 registered nurses. Can you help me? So we were able to do an analysis of registered nurses across the United States and identify geographies where there was more supply than demand of registered nurses, where cost of living was comparable or more favorable to Louisville. We built out a full-on digital ad campaign targeted specifically to nurses in those geographies that are outside of our region. And all of those ads drove to a hidden page on Live in Lou that first explained what the region had to offer, then explained a little bit about the employer, and ultimately had a button for registered nurses to apply for a position at Norton Healthcare. All of these nurses were located outside of our region. And so at the end of the campaign, with an investment of $50,000, we were able to get 836 registered nurses to begin the application process to work at Norton Healthcare and relocate from the region. That ended up being a cost per conversion of under $60 a person, which the CEO was very happy about because, you know, with as tight of a labor market, he was having to spend a significant more amount of money than that to try and attract talent. So we did it again, this time with radiology professionals. Same thing, we identified geographies across the United States where there was more supply than demand of radiology professionals, built out an ad campaign, built that hidden page on Live in Lou explaining the benefits of living in Louisville and the benefits of working at Norton. And in this campaign, we were able to send 389 radiology professionals to begin the application. All of these people have come from outside of our region. And in all of the campaigns that we've done to date, we have exactly 2,000 individuals from outside of the region that have begun the process to apply for a position and relocate. That's probably our most targeted. But as I said, our strategy has to incorporate a lot of different initiatives. One of the first things that we did was build a website, right? The places, according to DCI, the places where people look for information before considering relocating to a region are website and social media. So first we built a website and we made sure that we had a job board on there so that people could see all of the opportunity that exists. But it had to be more than that. We had to touch on all of those motivators that people told us were the most important things when they were considering a place to relocate. Quality of life, suitability for raising family, low cost of living, green space, in addition to opportunities and the ability to make a difference. So here you'll find everything that you could possibly want to know about Louisville, and some surprising things that you probably don't know. But we also made this a resource for employers because our employers are also doing recruiting, right? They're recruiting on their own. They're growing their workforce, looking for that specific talent. So we wanted to make sure that the resources that they needed to recruit talent were there as well. Next, we went to social media. This is a place where we can visually represent what it's like to live, work, and play in Louisville in a way that sort of creeps into the hearts and minds of potential residents and consumers. When I started at GLI, we had 139 followers, and today we're actually at over 71,000. This is because we are very intentional about crafting the content that we have on here. It is much more science than art. We monitor engagements for every single post and really lean into the stuff that is working and helping us to increase followers. Predominantly, our followers are local, but that's really what we want. We want the 71,000 people that live in Louisville or are fans of Louisville or familiar with Louisville to be our third-party advocates and talk about why others in their groups should relocate. Harvard did a study a few years ago that said if you're Facebook friends with somebody and they move, you're like 80% more likely to consider moving. Just, I guess, keeping up with the Joneses, or maybe it looks interesting. So we're sort of leaning into that strategy when it comes to social. We also created some brand ambassadors called City Champs. These are volunteers who are passionate about living in Louisville, who are passionate about their lives here, the community here, giving back here. And they spend a couple of hours, a couple times a year, getting trained on how to sell Louisville to a new or prospective resident. They're a great resource for employers that are trying to recruit talent from out of the region. They're a great resource for people that have just recently relocated and are trying to find their people that they fit in with, or the network that they fit in with, or even prospective residents. We have 160 City Champs right now. We actually have a training session a week from tomorrow, and there are another 50 that have signed up for that. So this is a really fun sort of human welcome wagon of people who are already telling us, I'm an advocate for your community. Please let me help you get people to relocate here. We also built a workforce ecosystem hub. One of the great things about living in Louisville is we have a ton of workforce support resources, but the space is very confusing. We have a lot of nonprofits, we have a lot of accelerators, we have a lot of support organizations, we have a lot of organizations that help people overcome workforce barriers, but it can be very confusing. And so we built this in November of 2023. I forget what year we're in. No, 2022. That's right. We're in 24. As a way for job seekers to connect to those resources and as a way for employers to connect to those resources. Many of our employers aren't aware that there's state dollars available for them if they want to upskill or reskill their staff. And so we connect them to those resources here as well. But it's a way for both job seekers and employers to get access to the important resources that will help them upskill or attract talent. Andy mentioned doing some work with universities to make sure that we turn the brain drain into the brain gain. And for that, we have Finding You in Lou. This is a leadership and professional development program for college students and interns. We get a lot of interns here over the summer. Some of them don't live here, but they're working here. Some of them do live here, and maybe they're thinking about going someplace else once they graduate. So we really lean into this group and try to showcase the opportunities that exist for them post-graduation here, by connecting them with employers, by connecting them with community leaders, by teaching them how to network and make connections in Louisville, how to build their personal brand, how they can give back to their community, since we know that making a difference is something that's important to them. we've had so much success with this program that we're actually turning it into a day-long summit next year. So stay tuned. But this has been something that has allowed us to openly talk with those that are graduating from college and convince them that this is the place that they need to grow their career. And that's all we're doing.
Fantastic presentation. Thank you for the creation of that. It was very, very informational. I love the data and the information enclosed. One question that I have, and I'll open it up to any other members that may want to follow up. With Louisville specifically, with a lot of the downtown business closures, have you seen that as a hurdle, or has that been an opportunity for other parts of Louisville to show growth when trying to recruit and maybe retain people in the city?
Yes, both.
Okay.
We've done a lot of work in partnership with the Louisville Downtown Partnership and their executive director, Rebecca Fleischaker, who's a fantastic supporter of downtown, to try and showcase all of the wonderful things that are happening in downtown Louisville, but that has also opened up opportunities for other parts of our city and other counties around us. We're seeing a lot of growth in Shelby County. We're seeing a lot of growth in Oldham County and Bullitt County. So people, I think, now are thinking more holistically about the region than ever before.
Good. Any other members? So, Senator Funky Fromar.
It is just fantastic, the work between Lexington and Louisville, what you've done. And I like that you pulled in U of L as a clear partner. I didn't really see that in Lexington, and I'm thinking about us in Northern Kentucky as well, having NKU. But I wanted to try to build on a little bit. How do you have some thoughts on how we take this statewide? And I'm even considering like crowd rise. How did you come up with Live in Lou or Lex? You know, like, did you get some really good support around that? And maybe how do we build on that for all of Kentucky?
You want to go first?
Sure. That's a great question. And I will say the University of Kentucky has been at the table. They've been represented throughout the process that we've worked on. The phase 2 for us is leaning more into those university partnerships, and it's not just UK, Asbury, Midway, Eastern. All of these Transy, all of these partners are ready and willing to figure out what we need to do in that space. But to answer your question about, what are the next steps, I think our recommendation for the task force is that putting an emphasis on the state developing a talent attraction strategy, campaign, a blueprint for Kentucky would be our hope. The task force would include that in your recommendations. Our first step was really just coming up with the plan, like using research. We worked with Development Counselors International, DCI, to develop that marketing blueprint based on research. What were our strengths? What were the target audiences? What are those marketing tactics that we could utilize, and what would a budget look like? A lot of times it's like, well, how much do we need to spend? Well, we don't really know until we have the plan and the priorities. And I think it's important to engage stakeholders from economic development and tourism and education. All the partners need to be around the table. All the regions need to have a voice in what that strategy looks like, because while we all have commonalities, there are probably unique things that we need to highlight based on the region through a marketing campaign. There are industries, I think, that the Economic Development Cabinet would say are focuses that we need to make sure are highlighted. So I think it took us a year just to come up with the blueprint and the strategy. And then the phase 2 was really developing that regional brand. And that took a lot of collaboration time with our partners, because we all have identities and pride in our communities and our counties. So for our regional leaders to get behind a Greater Lex brand was huge. And I think it took everyone understanding it's how external outside audiences look at us, and that we have to see ourselves that way too. And it took a lot of trust and time to build that. So I think our ask is, let's just get started with a process and come up with that strategy that we can all be behind and understand and be ambassadors for.
I think the only thing that I would add is that it's a yes and strategy. Like, yes, each of our individual communities, we're going to continue to market ourselves and the unique things that we have to offer. But we also need to market ourselves as a state. Remember, it takes 7 times before anything sticks in your brain, right? So the more Kentucky gets out, the more Lexington or Louisville will get awareness as well.
And if I could just add one more thing to that, I think that's a great point. And, there are other areas of the state that are doing this type of work. You're just hearing from Louisville and Lexington today. SOAR is doing some talent attraction with a company called Make My Move. Colby couldn't be here today. I believe you're hearing from him next month. But in the one pager that's in front of you, you'll see some of the members of this group, Kentucky Association of Manufacturers and others throughout the state that are really invested and interested in a statewide talent attraction strategy. And so we wanted to show you, what is possible and what that might look like. But there's support from many areas of the state in this initiative.
Fantastic. Representative Pollock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I echo what Andy just mentioned about collaborating with our regional, and obviously we've all got personalities from every county surrounding Louisville and Lexington, and I just appreciate the opportunity that they're coming to the table. As you can tell, I'll include Spencer County in those counties as well, and I know that's a growing county. I grew up in Meade County, which is below. But my question was, in an earlier presentation, I forgot his name, but he mentioned that we were in the top 5, I think, in the state of bringing attraction of employment. And obviously this is a workforce task force. But I guess my question is, and ask your opinion, what did the state of Kentucky, what attraction has brought us into that top 5 as a state of bringing in employers and factories and all the growth that we're seeing?
I think that was cost of doing business. Am I right?
Competitiveness.
Yeah, business competitiveness.
Well, I would just say overall, based on, I think our region is the Kentucky story in a way. I think our cost of living, having those sites for businesses, having the workforce, our business climate here in the state has been a positive. So all of these attributes are helping us with the job creation message to businesses and employers. But what we do continue to hear is that they are having difficulty finding those skilled workers. So that's why we're saying I think we've got some good business policies in place. We've invested in the product development initiative to get more sites ready for business. So we're providing those what we would call more traditional supports. We're doing a great job of that. I think Kat mentioned that in her remarks. But it's making sure that they've got the skilled labor that they need. That's becoming just as important in those conversations. So I think that's why we're saying today, like really getting invested in those types of marketing strategies are another important economic development tool to have in our tool belt. And particularly focusing on young professionals because we're not seeing that growth in those demographics.
Ted mentioned Jobs Ohio. Take a look at that. They do a fantastic job of marrying economic development and business attraction with talent attraction. That is a seamless connection that if you can show that you're bringing the talent to the region, the businesses will absolutely pay attention and will come. And those work really in a symbiotic fashion, and they do a very good job of that.
Senator Frankie Fromeyer.
So another thought that we've addressed this in a couple different committees, and I'm only 650 days on the job, but who's counting? But what continues to seem to be reoccurring, we talk about cost of living, but then we mentioned quickly off the top of our head 5 different universities or educational opportunities in Kentucky. But what we do, and I'm a DeMossville girl that went to UK, we send them home. We send them home on the weekends, or we send them home on the holidays, and then we send them home for the summers. So they never consider it home. They're always going back to Chicago, or they're going back to Nashville. But we got them here, but then we send them home. How can we build some momentum for 365 days of living opportunities for those students so that they actually can build some sort of something beyond their dorm room that they got to move in and out of for fall break? I mean, we see it even with some of our foreign-born students, and we see this in Northern Kentucky, but we see this everywhere. And now that I'm in this seat, I see it statewide. And what can we do? And how can we perhaps build some momentum on 365? And sadly, we also actually do have some vacant dorms in different parts of our campuses as well. So why aren't we innovating around that?
Well, I have seen, I had a request from a university in Ohio to allow some of their students to utilize our dorms on campus to do internships here. We weren't able ultimately to make that connection because I'm not responsible for any of the dorms at the universities. But I think taking an approach like that, where we have outreach with other sister institutions in other states and convincing them to send their interns here for the summer, would be an interesting thing to pursue. The Finding You in Lieu was sort of our solution for that because they're here over the summer. And many of the interns that we have worked with, they don't live here. They're just here working at Humana for the summer, or they're here working at Northwestern Mutual for the summer, getting those paid internships. And so we're trying to get in front of them and say, hey, we have opportunity for you here. And then extending that messaging over social media, collaborating with the universities to make sure that they're the ones that are seeing them every day, that they're an advocate for their students to stay in the region post-graduation.
Sorry, I was going to say that excellent point, and I didn't say that earlier when Chairman Wise asked the question, but that in addition to the job opportunities, making them aware of internships and connections, it is the quality of place, and making sure that our students feel connected to the community that they're in and they could see themselves living there post-college is absolutely the next step in our efforts. So next year, that's our goal, is to figure out what type of initiative that looks like. We're seeing some best practices across the country. Other cities and universities are partnering on initiatives. It's just trying to figure out with our universities what would work best. Is it something in the summer? Is it something throughout the year? What type of programming? But that goal of connecting them to place is absolutely critical.
Fantastic. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you all so much for the presentation today, and thank you also for the recommendations as we go forward with the task force. Our final presentation for today, and I also see in the crowd a young gentleman, Mr. Bynes over there, and his mother is covered by the pillar here that I cannot see her. But I didn't know if he would like to come sit in a comfortable chair up here in the committee, which I know has to be much better than sitting in one of those chairs there. He is more than welcome to make his way up to a committee chair and bring his schoolwork or notebook or coloring book or whatever he has over there. I don't blame you at all. I wish you had not said that in front of the committee members or Representative Pollock, because I know that ice cream is on his tie probably today. You are very welcome. Our last presentation for today is the role of apprenticeship programs in attracting and retaining Kentucky workers. Chad Mills and Dustin Reinstetler, as you make your way to the tables today. And as was mentioned in the last presentation, next month our final agenda will feature SOAR and some other areas around the state, just so members are aware. And then also on this topic of apprenticeships, next month we will also have other apprenticeship programs that the state is doing as well. So, gentlemen, thank you all for being here this morning. If you would identify yourselves for the record, and you may proceed.
Sure. Dustin Reinstetler, President.
Remember the microphone there? Yep.
There we go.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Dustin Reinstetler, President, Kentucky State AFL-CIO. I live in Louisville and office in Frankfort.
I'm Chad Mills. I'm the Director of the Kentucky State Building Trades, and Representative Ball, I heard you say this might take a couple hours today, so we got about an hour left, so no, we won't do that to you, I promise. We're short and sweet.
The floor is yours, gentlemen, if you wish to proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you to the chairs and members of this task force committee for the opportunity to hear from working people of Kentucky. We appreciate this body's foresight and care for the Commonwealth's economic future. As representatives of labor, we are honored to have the opportunity to partner with government and private business to do what we do best, build and manufacture Kentucky products. My name is Dustin Reinstetler. Although I'm now president of Kentucky AFL-CIO, an organization that represents working families across our state, my experience comes from being a union bricklayer. In 2005, with the guidance of my Uncle Bill, a union carpenter, I joined the bricklayers and allied craft workers as a brand new apprentice. I had never laid one brick in my life, but they had a school and a teacher where I could go learn the basics for 8 weeks while getting paid and they bought my first set of tools. And after that, the union placed me with a masonry contractor for paid on-the-job training and occasional classroom training that was paid also. During my 4-year apprenticeship, I received scheduled raises every 6 months. As my 4-year apprenticeship, as long as I was meeting my requirements until eventually progressing to a journeyman. I was also able to electively receive an associate's degree at no cost. By the time I finished, I had received so much safety and professional training that I was able to quickly elevate my career to a construction superintendent. My training allowed me in less than 4 years from becoming a journeyman to make 6-figure salary, read and follow blueprints, build some very cool structures around the state, all while orchestrating multiple crafts with lots of workers to finish projects safely, on time, and under budget. I know without a doubt my union's training program was instrumental in my career. Sadly, not enough young people or general public know about my trade or the 13 other building trade apprenticeship programs available in Kentucky. We really are one of Kentucky's best kept secrets. So I was never told about any of these classes by guidance counselors or teachers. I was only able to have this awesome career and be debt free because of my relatives who already worked in construction. And I say this to highlight both my story and Chad's because they're essentially the same. So this time I'll hand it over to Chad to let him tell his story.
Good afternoon. I want to thank Co-Chair Wise and Co-Chair Duvall and the rest of the task force for asking us to speak to you today. It's very important to have a conversation about how to educate and retain a workforce in Kentucky that will help grow our economy and make our Kentucky businesses more successful. My name's Chad Mills, and I'm the director of the Kentucky State Building and Construction Trades Council that represent 18,000 union construction workers from 14 crafts in Kentucky. First, I want to tell you a little bit about my background. I became a member of the Plumbers and Pipefitters Local 633 in Owensboro, Kentucky in 1992. I first served a 5-year apprenticeship where I was taught to be a certified welder, pipe fitter, and master plumber. Like Dustin, I learned of this apprenticeship opportunity not from any school administrator, but from my dad, who is also a member of Local 633. In 1992, it seemed to be a big push for all high school graduates to obtain a 4-year college degree rather than to go into the trades. I worked in various positions in the field for 20 years and even owned my own union plumbing company for a few years. I later became a business manager of my local in July of 2012. In that position, I was responsible for several day-to-day business decisions, including serving as a trustee on our health and welfare and pension retirement plans. By serving on these plans, I learned how important and expensive health care and retirement were to employers and employees. After serving as business manager for 9 years, I was asked to take the position I have now. My 32 years of experience has shown me how important training is in retaining our workforce. As I said earlier, the KSB CTC represents 14 crafts in Kentucky. These 14 crafts make up 55 local unions, all of which have their own apprenticeship programs. As you can see in the handout that we provided, we have 50 training facilities to service our local unions. The training we provide is paid for by the local unions themselves, meaning there is no cost to the apprentice or to local or state government. I want to emphasize that again. There is no cost to taxpayers. These programs are set up on an earn-while-you-learn basis where we teach our apprentices to perfect their skills while working safely. At the end of 2023 in Kentucky, there were 6,335 total registered apprentices, of which 4,627 were building trades apprentices. Putting that in perspective, statewide apprenticeship numbers are close to equal to the number of students attending Murray State University. And the total union apprenticeship numbers have risen by 12% since 2019. It typically takes 4 to 5 years to graduate and become a journeyman or woman. Our programs also offer continuous education classes for our journeymen and women to help keep up with the new industries with the new industry standards. We all know that a person can learn a lot of their skills in the classroom, but that person can refine their skills by working on the job and building these projects. In-classroom education and on-the-job training results in highly trained, skilled workers who are prepared for any job, which result in a more frequent and stable job assignment, along with higher wages and more benefits than their non-union counterparts. Highly skilled workers build projects on time and on or under budget that is done right the first time. Increased productivity normally results in lower costs for the employer and customer. In some cases, we feel this has helped tip the scale in our favor to bring some of the larger projects to Kentucky. such as the Blue Oval SK project in Glenville, the Ascend Elements project in Hopkinsville. These two projects alone have resulted in nearly 7,000 union construction jobs. I'm sure you've heard through this task force many ways to educate and return our workforce in Kentucky, but I want to touch on wages and benefits for a minute. Family-sustaining wages and benefits are important to all of us. We all know that the cost of living has increased every year, but even more so lately. We try to set our wages and benefits to make sure our members look at their jobs as a career, not as just to get me by a job until something better comes along. As you know, one of the top reasons our young people move out of state is in the pursuit of higher wages or better benefits. While wages are an important part of someone's career, benefits such as health care and pension are equally as important. Health care can be one of the most expensive things for a young family. We all remember when we started our families how expensive hospital and doctor bills were. It seemed like someone was sick or had to go to the doctor at least once a month. That's why having good health care insurance plays a big role in someone sticking with their employers. Additionally, although when we were young, we probably didn't think about retirement benefits much. It is important that our employers offer them. As we have grown older, we realize that we want to one day retire with dignity. I'm sure that there are many employees that have left their jobs in pursuit of a better and more secure retirement. I'm here to speak to you from a Kentucky construction worker standpoint, and I have been thinking about how we can add to and retain our construction workforce here in our state. I believe there are ways that we could work together to make sure our state-funded projects have a better chance of being built by Kentucky contractors with Kentucky workers. I'm sure Representative Branscombe, who I understand is from a construction family, has seen the same things that I have seen on some of these state projects. Out-of-state contractors coming in, bringing out-of-state workers with them. I'm sure you could walk outside these doors into what used to be the parking lot and see some of this for yourselves when this meeting is over. I know there are policies that we could work on together that could help these matters and help construction work become a more inviting career to more people in Kentucky. Finally, I also want to mention the passage of House Bill 357, which was a bill we worked with Representative Truitt. Worked with Representative Truitt. It originally was filed as a standalone bill, House Bill 605, but it eventually passed with another education bill. And we are pleased to tell you we are working on a training program for admins and teachers starting in Jefferson County that will allow educators to earn their credit hours towards professional development while also learning about the opportunities in the building trades. In closing, I want to thank all of you again for your time, and I look forward to working with you in the future. I want to hand it back over to Dustin at this time.
So as I'm now a year into my new role, representing all workers in our Commonwealth, I see many missed opportunities for apprenticeships beyond just the 14 building trade crafts. In fact, earlier this year, I introduced Senator Howell to the machinist unions, and we sat down for a while and discussed coding and programming of robotics and machinery, and how he thought the state was in great need of some kind of apprenticeship program for that. And that's just one example of many. I also see great opportunities in training for factories, distilleries, warehousing, transportation, and more. We understand that some non-union facilities do train as well, but we can all agree that workers of all types who are properly trained are more productive, safer, and produce higher quality results. I'd also like to add that as I travel the state, I hear the same thing often. I wish we had more trade schools. I wish we had more vocational schools like we used to. I hear that from parents and business leaders. I know we have some impressive CTEs, but we certainly could use more. So, as I placed an emphasis on earlier, quality of craftsmanship is key. And as it pertains to our future investments into Kentucky, I see great opportunity for improvement in construction. Unfortunately, many of our public buildings are being built by out-of-state, unskilled labor. As a Kentucky taxpayer myself, I'm often outraged at how much money we waste on having to go back and repair bad work, replace items too frequently, or projects going over budget, over schedule because of improper planning or improper installation. One that stands out recently is Hilltopper Hall at Western Kentucky University. Because of bad construction and bad design, this $40 million building is now vacant because it was literally falling apart after less than 5 years. 400 students had to be relocated in an emergency situation due to injury concerns. So now not only do we have us taxpayers to bear the cost of an empty $40 million building, but the cost of the repairs or rebuild, demolition, and everything that comes along with that. Across the state, we have improper installation of roofs, HVAC, welding, and more, which isn't really a matter of if, but when we will have to repair sooner than expected. So as a taxpayer myself, I hope our legislature can figure out a way to ensure our publicly funded projects are being performed by locally trained workers who take pride in their work and in their state. And lastly, I just want to express to this task force my gratitude again for this bipartisan effort. Our neighboring states do not exceed us in this regard, and I further applaud you all for inviting the voices of workers along with the conversation of business and government. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you both for your testimony. We do have some members with some questions. I'm going to go right to those. Representative Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mine's not a question, mine's a comment on this. I went straight into a trade school right out of high school, some proud product of vocational. It was vocational school back then, trade school, tech school, whatever you want to call it. In the school, in education, our schools are getting better. But here's the deal. Until we bust the stigma that you have to have a 4-year degree, until we get our high schools to truly buy in, even down to middle school, until we get true buy-in that there are other options out there, that yes, 4-year degree is great, but also put out there that being a plumber, being a welder, and putting Kentucky Welding Institute. If you haven't been down there, you need to go down there. They have a wall where if you make $100,000 in your first year out of there, you come back and you hang your helmet on the wall. And guess what? There's a lot of helmets going back up on the wall. We have to start busting that stigma. It starts right there. And until we get men and women to acknowledge that that's a great career path and figuring it out in high school, we're behind the curve.
Absolutely. Hear, hear. Representative Funky Fromeyer.
Yes, sir. So I really appreciate this. And I'm thinking maybe adding on to what Representative Cook is saying, how do we get the middle schoolers and the high schoolers even right now doing a little bit, getting a little bit of exposure? Are there some opportunities for them to begin working in it before they finish with school? I will admit that I've been spending a tremendous amount of time today on our Kentucky district data profiles on where we're winning and losing in our schools at the moment. And we've got a lot of truant kids, 25, 30%, maybe not even showing up. So how can we get them more excited or arms wrapped around some hands-on activity like this?
I think a whole lot of us, like Representative Cook said, we have to start explaining to them what this offers. I do think the guidance counselor bill that all of you helped pass, well, eventually, it's not going to be a game changer overnight, but if some of our guidance counselors at these schools or administrators that are talking to these young students have an opportunity to understand what the building trades are all about, and they see that this young person's not interested in a 4-year degree, maybe they can, and they have contact information on where to send them, then maybe they can get these young people more involved in the trade system at a younger age. We are, as our building trades, going into schools and different things for educational days or career development days or whatever, and talking to more and more people about that. And I have noticed some difference in the past, but the vocational schools in the high schools, man, I'm telling you, whenever I was an apprentice in 1992, some of the best welders that I came out with, as I said, I'm a certified welder, they were way further ahead than what I was at welding when they first got into the program, because they had vocational schools at their high schools. And I'm seeing more and more of that now. I'm seeing more interest in that. But if there's any type of funding or something that you guys could help with that, I'm telling you, that is one big game changer. And there's so much opportunity. I don't want to go on and on, but I will tell you that it's crazy to me. I'm hearing things, a couple different projects per month coming to me, talking to me about possibilities of being built in Western Kentucky. The Louisville Lexington area's always got something going on. But even in Eastern Kentucky, the possibility of this Century aluminum plant being built, these are game-changing opportunities, not only for a lifelong job for these people that's going to work there full time, but for the construction workers that's going to help build it and maintain it. And these are, and I'm telling you, right now we could put 5,000 more people in the construction industry, and I think Representative Branscombe can probably vouch for this. There's a shortage of us out there, and there needs to be more and more, union or non-union. I mean, we're here advocating for construction workers, even though we're union representatives. We need more people interested in our trades.
Senator, there's a small thing that I don't know if you know Mary Taylor with the education. Her and I worked together back when I worked for just the Bricklayers Union before I had this role. This would have been 5-6 years ago. We helped create a program that they call TRACK. Now, of course, I was just a small slice of the 14 trades, the bricklayers. And in the state of Kentucky, there are only 2 vocational high schools that do masonry. So, like I said, small slice. However, we still create a successful program. So these kids, high school kids, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, that are taking the masonry class, they're going ahead and getting credits towards our apprenticeship. And we were going into those 2 schools at the end of the school year to get, administer a test. And as long as they scored a certain grade on that test, they could enter our apprenticeship that much further ahead than a brand new apprentice because of their experience. So they're coming in making a little bit better money, a little bit better benefits, and ultimately becoming a journey person that much faster. Yeah, so that'd be something to expand on. I think it's a good program.
I had a
Follow up.
my financial advisor brain jumped on as well. So I joined the industry, and we start with some really great benefits, but then I decided I'm going to switch gears, and maybe I'm going to become a teacher. So are the retirement options that you're offering people portable to a new career? Are the pensions that you're offering cash balance that they'll be able to transfer to an IRA rollover? How does a person have some flexibility as they're growing in their career?
I'll get this one if you don't care.
Yeah, go ahead.
It varies. A lot of our, like, I'm a pipe fitter, and our pensions are, we have defined benefit and defined contribution type pensions. If you're a defined benefit pension, it's a 5-year vesting period, and once you're vested, that pension will be there for you at retirement age, whether you move on, 10 years within your career to go be a teacher or whatever. But the defined contributions is pretty well like a 401k, basically. And I know that we've been setting up more 401k type programs in our building trades as well, because, defined benefit pensions are great. They are great, but it is nice to have a cash balance whenever you retire as well, that you can draw from if you need it for emergency situations or whatever. And we are trying to roll in and kind of diversify and do some things a little differently than what we've done in the past. But yeah, our retirements are outstanding, but it's hard work. And you're not always going to be able to work till you're 65 years old in the construction world, because you do wear your body out some. I've already had a back surgery myself, and I've been in an office now for 13 years. So I understand that it is hard work on your body, and your construction workers probably work span is not as long as some other careers.
Got a few more questions. Representative Tackett Lafferty.
Yes, a comment and a follow-up question.
Please proceed. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank you very much for this presentation today, because I do have a brief story, actually just recently. And your title here says that the apprenticeship program is helping to attract and retain Kentucky workers, but I don't think folks realize just how important it is to not only our workers, but our employers and our communities. Only recently, I was speaking with a fella who does pipe fabrication out of Louisville, and he was telling me how he was bursting at the seams, union jobs, growing out of his building, needing another place to go. And of course, I gave him my same topic that I always talk about how in Eastern Kentucky we have the skilled workers. Our problem is we do not have jobs. So when we talk about talent attraction, I always try to give props out there to folks like our retired coal miners who, since the coal decline, are looking for new occupations with comparable pay. And they're there, and they're skilled in labor, they're skilled in safety, they're skilled in all kinds of things. And so this fella actually had an apprentice from my district. He had taken in an apprenticeship, apparently, obviously very successful. Now, on October 28th, they're doing a ribbon cutting in my district, bringing at least 30, maybe 36 jobs to begin $41 an hour with union pay, union retirement benefits. So I would like to just say thank you for this presentation, because not only do I think that the apprenticeship program is important for people to learn about as far as our youth go in order to steer them in the right direction, but I think it could be very important for communities such as mine in Eastern Kentucky to show that we have that skilled labor there. And if you'll give us an opportunity by coming to us, we'll show you how we can fill those jobs for you. But thank you. I do have a quick question. Because this has kind of turned me on to seeing how that apprenticeship was probably very important to that interaction. What is the process to join an apprenticeship?
Do you want to?
Oh, sure. So that's probably one of our big problems. I mentioned earlier, we're one of Kentucky's best kept secrets, in my opinion. Usually you find out through a family member or a friend or a neighbor. You can apply online. You can apply actually going to an apprenticeship building or to a union hall, literally fill out an application. They have an interview process. And then based on the demand of work at the time, which of course we all know construction's booming right now, you can start the next day a lot of times. It's very simple. When I joined, it was a little different. I joined, like I said, in 2004. Construction was a little slower at that time, and I felt like I had won the lottery to get that job, because there were other people trying to get the job. Now that's not the case. If you apply, you get a very fair opportunity to become a member and apprentice.
And that's something we need to do better. We need to do better in getting the message out that what our programs offer, and that's really what we're trying to do through the House Bill 357 and different things is to try to get our message out on what we have to offer. Construction in general, it don't matter what side, what you're doing, it's a growing field, but less and less people seem to be interested in doing that type of work, or they don't know about it, one of the two. So yeah, we do need to do better in trying to figure out advertising what we got going on, for sure.
Well, I think that was a very important part because once we discovered that we had that in common, and that program was very successful, I think that opened the doors to other opportunities.
You have a second fab shop getting ready to be built in your area too. Mighty Con's getting ready to build another fab shop that's probably going to employ 30 or better people. So it's some great opportunity for that area, and I'm really, really happy. Ben Collier, I don't know if you know Ben Collier, he's a pipe fitter, he's a good friend of mine.
Yes.
Ben's done a really good job out there, and we're really proud of him.
Yeah, great. He actually is the one that had, I think, set up the apprenticeship, that from what I'd learned.
Yeah.
One more quick question.
Please proceed.
Mr. Chair. Do you have any other programs targeted toward certain groups of people, like maybe out of work coal miners, veterans, or even recovery?
Yes, we're actually, just to let you know, we're working right now with the corrections, Kentucky Corrections Department. Our iron workers are starting a program at Luther Luckett, going to train people to weld. They're supposed to get started in January, and our painters are supposed to do the same thing, our painters unions. So we're trying to, a second chance or re-entry program, and we're going to build off of that. My plan is that once this is up and running, it's taken a while to get through all the bureaucracy and get people in for training, but anyway, it's about there. My plan is to, take some other crafts in there and show them what's going on. And maybe other crafts will be interested in starting their own programs within these facilities, and to maybe expand it. I think there's a women's facility, and Luther Luckett's going to have the same thing. So we got two different facilities we're doing this in. We want to expand it, but we got to start somewhere. So that's kind of where we're at with that. As far as coal miners and different things, job fairs and things like that's probably been our biggest pickup on that, and just word of mouth. But
Helmets to hard hats.
Helmets to hard hats, veterans and piping. Veterans big time with our veterans and piping. The last 18 weeks of active duty, I think there's a dozen or maybe 13 or 14 sites across the United States. Last 18 weeks of active duty, some of these people are getting into our welding programs, and when they come out, if they pass their test, which most all of them do, they can come into any local in the United States that they want to as a second-year apprentice. So, these people might be training at Fort Campbell, which we have one at Fort Campbell, and they may be from Washington State, but their training's taking place there, and our unions are giving them that training on site, and then they can go back to Washington State and be a second-year apprentice and go directly to work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank y'all. I'm real proud of my technical education as a former certified underground surface coal miner. You know, my jobs just there are not that many of them anymore. But I always tell everybody I had more money, less debt, better benefits, and most of it washed off at the end of the day. And I got a real vacation. So, you know, I'm proud of that. And I just appreciate, you know, Northeast Kentucky, you mentioned Mighty Con, Ben's my constituent. And we do have some good news going up there. We had an expansion at our Carpenters Training Center the other day. It was huge. Had a lot of kids there from schools, like Lee County even. I mean, we had kids from all over. So field days, exposure, us telling them what they can make, what they can do, what they can be part of. You don't always get to work at home. There's a couple downsides, but, you know, we're real proud of that has a Grayson address and our area's rich history of tradesmen and women. And we want that to continue. It's a multi-generational workforce, and we certainly, I think we could learn a lot from some of the programs that we have, and I'm glad you mentioned track because I was going to.
Okay.
That's education and labor coming together and creating pre-apprenticeships. And I think we can do more there. And it's existing, it's successful, and I think we need to look at the resources we have and expand upon those. So I'm going to give them a plug, and I just, you know, look at the disasters that we've got nationally right now, the deployment of linemen, of our National Guards, construction workers, and everything else. And, you know, this isn't going to get any better, folks. I think these weather patterns are changing regardless of what you want to call them. We're going to have a great need for more infrastructure in this country and in the eastern United States. And we really need to focus on putting our young people to work. And I'm also glad I've got the floor. You know, I know we had this discussion before about people in the workforce age that aren't working anymore, and they might be on disability, they might be on work comp. And you heard it. I mean, and I said it the other day. This is hard work. We have Kentuckians whether they're coal miners, truck drivers, construction trades. You might be 56 years old and you can't work. You can't do your job anymore. So when we look at those figures, we've got to factor in the real side of the true disability portion and those true workforce figures, and we may not like it, you know, but we've got a segment of our population that we're not going to get back in the workforce because they've already worked out. So I think that's relevant to know when we look at these numbers and as we move forward as a task force. But thank you all very much.
Thank you, Senator Webb. Last question, Senator Elkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually had the pleasure of seeing Senator Webb mine coal because she and I worked together for the same company several years ago. Most people don't know that, but I want to thank you guys for being here. I'm a believer in the apprenticeship program. I absolutely agree with Representative Cook. Until we bust the stigma or the belief that everybody has to have a 4-year degree, we're not going to solve the workforce issue that we have. The apprenticeship program is certainly a key. There's no silver bullet to solving our workforce issues, I know, but the apprenticeship program is one. But I'm sorry, I can't remember your name on the left there, but
Dustin.
Nope, the other one.
Oh, Chad.
Chad.
Yep, Chad. Chad, you said something earlier about you wanted to explore policies, and so I understand that that workforce retention is also an issue that we have to address. Not just the development of the workforce, which is what the apprenticeship program, but the retention of workers as well. Because as I looked at all these slides, and I see people are obviously migrating to Tennessee. You can see Nashville being number one at attracting workforce. Knoxville, I think, was number 2, and both of those were 1 and 2 with a bullet over Indianapolis, I think, was number 3. So we're going to have to focus also on retention, and I know that you guys represent a significant portion of skilled workers that we can't afford to lose to these other states continually, and it's also a part of the solution to the workforce issues in Kentucky. So I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on exploring policies that you mentioned earlier that may help to retain some of those workers.
Well, I've been privileged to be able to meet with both leadership of the House and Senate during the interim. I met with President Stivers a couple of weeks ago and Speaker Osborne, and they both seem to agree that we need to work on policies to try to keep Kentucky workers working more on Kentucky-funded projects. And I really didn't get in the weeds much about it, but I do feel like, and I don't want this to sound like, anytime anybody hears about the prevailing wage, it almost seems like it's a bad word. And I don't want anybody to think that. But what I'm getting at is that I think there is some policies that we could work on together for some type of a hybrid type version of a prevailing wage that make people more interested at a young age to come into these type of fields and know that they're not just doing this job until they can find something better, that it could actually turn into a career for them. I tell you what I've noticed, and I've been up here now for 3.5 years, as far as the director of the building trades. I've noticed that there's been a lot better line of communication. We've had an opportunity, us being sitting here in front of you guys right now might not have happened 5 or 6 years ago. And you don't know how much we appreciate you giving us this opportunity to talk to you right now. Because I do feel like that there's things that we could work on together, whatever you want to call it, prevailing wage or whatever, but wages that we could help assure that these Kentucky workers have a better chance of working on these Kentucky projects rather than bringing these out-of-town contractors in and them working on our projects. Now, I'm not saying that it should be Kentucky workers only, because our contractors like to travel into other states and do work as well. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, I actually got to talk to a guy downstairs yesterday. It was pretty ironic. He's working here at the Capitol, and he's doing some work on some remodels of some of these offices right now. He's a non-union worker. He's been in the field for 22 years, working. And I asked him what his thoughts were about prevailing wage, and he told me, he said, "Listen, man," he said, "I'm skilled enough now that I make good money." He said, "I don't have to have a prevailing wage to make a living." He said, "But when I started," he said, "if it wasn't for prevailing wage," he said, "I would have left this field. I already had a family. I already have, he said, he's probably around my age, been doing this for 22 years, but he already had a family started and everything else. But he said he was lucky enough to work on some prevailing wage projects that helped him make a decent enough wage to be able to learn his skill to where now he is skilled enough that he gets paid, a good wage without the prevailing wage." So what I'm getting at, I think it would attract more young people into the industry if we looked at things like that. And I'm not saying, used to it was a $250,000 threshold for prevailing wage. It's $250,000. Anything that was $250,000 on a school, remodel, air conditioning replacement, or whatever, it fell under the Prevailing Wage Act. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's not 250. Maybe it's a way higher number that it makes it more feasible for these superintendents to be able to afford some of their smaller projects. But on a larger project, we make sure that we're using good, skilled craftsmen on these brand new schools, that we don't have these issues like Dustin was talking about at Western Kentucky University. Union or non, in my area, non-union workers worked on prevailing wage jobs as much as union workers did. I can promise you, especially in the piping field. So just an open door of line of communication. Let's talk about this. Let's figure out some things, and we're, you're going to see us rolling around the hallways like you did last year, but we're definitely interested in working on things together with you all, and we appreciate it very much that you've given us this opportunity today.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
I just would like to say to that, I appreciate you guys being here, because to be sure, skilled labor is going to be a part of the solution to Kentucky's workforce issues that we have, and I appreciate you coming before us today and testifying or presenting. I know it's not easy to do. Thank you for that. My office will always be open, because I think there are policies we're going to have to work on to retain and to build or develop workforce. And I think you guys, as I said, not the silver bullet, but I think you're certainly a part of the solution. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Elkins. I did overlook Representative Pollock for a final comment question.
Final comment. You mentioned communication. I want a couple things. I've been in contact. Congressman Comer and I had a conversation not too long ago, and he made the point, and I echo that, is that we have lost, we feel like, the pride in that check that we've earned, and the passion and the pride of the skills that we have, that we perform each and every day. But that's just kind of a comment. But again, and piggybacking what Representative Cook was talking about, even at a younger age, if we can just talk about the passion that's in you to give what that looks like for, your career, it's a huge decision. But if we can get that passion and pride back into the workforce and the skills is a point. I want to tell a quick story, Mr. Chair, and that is I met up with a factory worker who'd been at this factory for 12 years, started out at $12 an hour, worked himself up to $21. And this happened right after COVID and everything. And obviously, to me, after COVID, the wages seemed like we just went boom. He was now asked to train a person who come in starting off at $18, $19 an hour. In his words, $3 an hour less than it's taken me to get where I'm at, and now I'm asked to train. But I guess the rapport, again, that is a huge thing. I feel like that these people that obviously they're showing up every day to work, which that's a huge, another topic we can talk about, Mr. Chair, is people showing up to work. But I was lost for words for the very first time ever. All right. Usually I have something to say or a comment, but I didn't know what to tell the guy. And just kind of wanted to share that story with you that I was faced with, and any suggestions. And because I would love to go back and just say, suck it up. I'm just where we're at, and that's just what we're going to have to deal with. And he didn't want to hear that. Yeah. But any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure to work with many great union contractors that not only participate in apprenticeship programs, but we didn't really mention this, but the way apprenticeship programs are run, it's half of the labor side make it a board situation, so half labor and half management. So the actual contractors or the company owners of the construction companies, they have some say in the guidance of the training and the funding and how they spend and who they hire and all that stuff. Where I think there's some value in apprenticeships is there's already a set wage of where a new person starts, and a set progression is how their wages elevate throughout their career until they have become qualified and shown that they command that top wage. That would probably be my solution to that.
Perfect. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity for you all to testify today. And I think, as you say, been open and reciprocal for further conversations. That's part of this process, is for us to take what we're hearing and we work on this together. Please know open doors always there. And thank you all so much for being with us today.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Absolutely. Seeing no further questions or items for today, next month is our last monthly meeting for the task force. Thank you all for your attendance today, and have a safe trip home. Oh, sorry. That is correct. There will be a follow-up meeting for the recommendations. Thank you, Janine. Always. Thank you. So moved.